So my name's Nick Talbott. I was class of 2011, and I grew up right down the street from Gunn. I loved the experience I had at Gunn. I worked, really hard, and I think that was a kind of the the standard at the time. Everyone was trying to get into good schools, and I know it's still like that today. I had a kind of a cool path. Let's see, I remember the day it was my junior year. I told my mom, you know what, I really want to try and play a sport in college. And there wasn't much time, obviously, for me to get recruited because this was the end of my junior year, right before the summer started. My mom and I were talking, and I she suggested that maybe I should check out crew because I had my rowing teacher as a professor at Gunn. She was a competitive rower back in college. And so I decided to take up rowing. And that summer I went and joined the Stanford Rowing Club, which is like a high school club. I went and started training that whole summer, and I woke up every day at about 4 a.m. and trained in the morning and then trained in the afternoons too. And then by the end of my summer, I qualified for nationals. And then I got a call from Brown to ask me if I wanted to come row for them. I ended up getting their like a last minute recruiting spot. And then I ended up at Brown. And then after 2 years, I quit crew because I was really sick of it and I wasn't really having that much fun. And I decided, you know what, I really want to do something I, enjoy and I love. And so I picked up squash that summer. And then I walked onto the Brown squash team. This great match with this guy for the 14th spot, and I won 15-13 in the fifth game, which if you don't know squash, it's a really close match. And I ended up getting the last spot in the team. And then I just trained my butt off for the next 2 years. And by the end of my senior year at Brown, I could beat everybody on the team. And then after that, I ended up going pro in squash, and I moved to, France basically the day after I graduated from college. And then I traveled through Europe playing for a couple more months. And then I came back and started coaching at Stanford. And that's where I've been for the last 4 years. Currently, but I was right at the cusp of when all those, suicides started happening at Gunn. Back, like I knew that, the first kid pretty well, JP Blanchard. And so I knew his family, I knew his sister pretty well. And so I was right, my sister and I kind of lived through, or experienced a lot of those kids passing, and we were pretty close to all those kids. So that was I'd say that was probably the biggest setback that we had to deal with when we were there. I think my sister and I walked away with a little bit of perspective in our life and saying that, you know what, high school is it's just a few years, but you have this whole incredible life to look forward to. And so you can't get too bogged down. So crew was sort of my catharsis, to kind of get out and just relieve any sort of anxiety I had. And, it's just my sort of way to find Zen. So rowing was really a way that I found that escape. And so without it, I think I would have been in, a lot of trouble. But it was just, I could basically just push my body to a limit to where, I didn't have the energy to focus too much on anything else. And so I think it would have been after I had left the crew team. And I loved the exercise aspect of the team. I didn't totally support the way that the rowers at Brown treated, other people that weren't inside their little niche. And, I'd worked so hard to get to a good university that I really wanted to experience what it was like to, get to know other kids that weren't athletes, and that was going to be sort of my path. And it was perfect because at the camp that I was coaching at, all the little kids were about my level. So it was good practice for me. And so I think I fell in love with it that summer because it was just an atmosphere where it was purely just learning. And I knew I was way behind the eight ball, but I was just having a blast doing it. And I was interested. Uncertainty. I still have feelings of uncertainty, so I don't think that really goes away. But no, Just, I think, watching my parents, they were both, I was lucky. I had one role model that was a professional athlete, my dad, and he, went on to become world champion. And then I had my mom, who was a professional cellist, and she went to Juilliard and has also become this incredible musician. And so I had role models that just showed me that if you, kind of put enough time and work into something, and you have some innate talent, that you can make something of it. And I was just always told that if I had a passion from when I was a little kid, if I had a passion and I pursued it and put 110% of my effort behind it, that you could make some sort of life path or life career out of it. And I think Gunn was a good place for that. That it showed me that, like, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think I was the most gifted student in my entire class, like academically. I think a big part of it was that I knew I could work a lot harder and a lot longer than a lot of kids I was around. Cool. I saw other kids that, were already on the brink of getting recruited, but they weren't willing to really put in the time like I was. And so I just knew that if I trained harder and woke up earlier and spent more hours out in that boat, that I would be able to pass them if I just put my head down and did the work. That if I put in the time and the effort, that there were going to be people there that were going to help me reach that next step, and translated that hard work ethics that I brought, to the squash court or to the rowing, over to the academics, and just said, what if I work harder than all these kids, then I'm going to have a good chance of, of doing well in these classes. I think my motivation was a big part of it for me was that I loved working out. I think if I had a recommendation, it would be to tell kids to try and find something that you're passionate about and put 100% of your effort behind that. But I found that rowing was my passion at the time, and so I just put all my effort behind it, and that was my way to sort of find that escape. If you could tell yourself, a future self, just that you're going to meet these incredible people in college that come from around the world that have such cool perspectives, it's worth putting in the time now to give yourself a chance to go to those places. Would have resonated more with me back then than look at all the work opportunities that this will lead and the networking that you'll develop through these schools. But I originally thought, what, I'm going to go into econ. Maybe I'll go work in, like, finance or something like that, because that's kind of what I had been brainwashed to think that was a good career path. And I ended up getting to college. I ended up meeting all these cool people, and I walked on, I found this great squash team, and I ended up falling in love with the sport and took a completely different path. But it was all because of the people I met and the experiences. And it wasn't because, it was a good resume builder or things of that nature. If anything, going to college just made me figure out a more unique path than I had anticipated. I think you have to find something. You have to find what you're passionate about. Focus on that, and then try and build a career around it instead of trying to figure out what the path would be and then injecting passion into that. I don't know if you guys have thought about this phrase, but there's some people that work to live, and then there's others that live to work.
Mhm.
And I'd say I'm more of a work to live type person. But I think I was surrounded by a lot of folks at Gunn that were the live to work, and that was kind of ingrained into me that you've just got to find that career path that'll bolster your resume and send you to this next step, versus just finding what you love and trying to build a career out of that. If there was one message I could send to kids, it'd just be find something you love doing, and focus on that for the next few years, and eventually see if you can create a career around it. But don't try and do the reverse. Don't try and get pinned into a career and then try and you know create a synthetic love for it.